Abeni and the River of Judgment, Part 3. On the second day, the wells grew shallow. Buckets scraped the bottoms, lifting more mud than water. Goats bleated thinly, tugging at their ropes, their swollen sides now hollowing. Chickens wandered restless, their wings drooping. Women carried gourds farther and farther to find even a trickle of water. On the third day, children began to cry with thirst. Their lips cracked, their eyes turned dull, their small hands reached for food that was no longer there. Mothers pressed them to their breasts, but milk no longer flowed. The men went into the forest hoping to hunt, but the animals had fled, and those they caught were thin, bones sharp under wasted skin. At night, when the people tried to sleep, the sound returned. Boom, boom, boom. Slow and merciless, it echoed from the river. The ground quivered with each beat, as if the earth itself carried the punishment deeper and deeper into their bones. By the fifth day, silence crept over the village. The drummers no longer played, the singers no longer sang. The laughter of children, once as common as birdsong, was gone. Only the coughs of the sick and the hollow cries of the hungry filled the air. Abeni walked the village paths with her calabash bowl empty in her hands. She saw women kneeling in the dust, their baskets bare. She saw men staring at their hands as if they could not believe how empty they had become. She saw the elders huddled in the shade, their proud eyes now clouded with fear. Each night she returned to the river, and each night the drumbeat throbbed beneath the water. Boom, boom, boom. It filled her chest, heavy as sorrow, until she felt she could not breathe. She sat by the bank and whispered, "What must we do? What will make this end?" But the river gave no answer. By the seventh day, the joy of the feast was nothing but ash in memory. Where once the people had sung with pride, they now bowed their heads in shame. The punishment had only begun, yet it was already more than they could bear. And still, the river drummed. The village was broken. Men no longer boasted in the square. Women no longer sang at the mortar, and children no longer played along the paths. Every face was hollow, every hand empty. The elders, who once walked proudly with their staffs, now sat in silence, afraid to meet the eyes of their own people. But the river was not silent. Each night the drumbeat rolled from its depths. Boom, boom, boom. The sound carried through huts and fields, pressing into dreams until no one could rest. Some covered their ears with cloth, others prayed to the ancestors, but still the drum did not stop. Abeni, though small, could not bear it any longer. On the eighth night, when the moon stood high and the stars looked down like watchful eyes, she walked alone to the riverbank. Her calabash was empty, but her heart was full of trembling courage. The water shivered as she approached, ripples spreading as though the river itself felt her presence. She stepped into the shallows, cool mud rising between her toes, and lifted the calabash high. "Great river," she whispered, her voice thin but steady. "I have nothing but this bowl and the truth I carry. If truth is not enough, then take me with it." The drum answered at once. Boom, boom, boom. The sound shook the reeds, sent birds shrieking into the night sky, and split the water with violent ripples. Abeni staggered, but she did not drop the calabash. From the dark surface the river rose. Mist coiled upward, shaping itself into a towering figure. Its body shimmered like water-made flesh, its hair flowed like liquid silver, and glowing marks crawled across its translucent skin. The spirit's eyes were deep hollows, filled with light that was not fire and not moon. Something older, something that remembered. Its voice came like many voices joined together, echoing inside her chest. "Child who carries nothing but honesty, why do you stand before me when your elders hide in their shadows?" Abeni's knees shook, but she forced herself to speak. "Because lies are choking us, because greed has deafened the village, because if no one tells the truth, then the land will die." The spirit leaned closer, droplets falling from its face into the water below, each one glowing briefly before fading. Truth must eat, it said, its tone heavy as stone. Bring forth the lies of your people. Expose them one by one. Only then will the curse break. The calabash in Abeni's hands filled suddenly, though she had not dipped it. Clear water glowed inside, brighter than the moonlight. She gasped and clutched it to her chest, warmth spreading through her arms. Go, the spirit commanded, its form already dissolving back into mist. Speak, let no lie hide, the drum waits for your voice. And then it was gone, leaving only ripples lapping at her ankles and the steady, patient heartbeat of the drum beneath the water. Boom, boom, boom. Abeni stood alone on the riverbank, her calabash glowing in her arms, knowing the task before her would pit her against the very people who had mocked her all her life. At dawn, Abeni stood in the center of the village square. Her bare feet pressed into the dust, her torn dress stirred by the morning breeze. In her hands, she carried the calabash, no longer plain, but glowing faintly as though the river's breath lingered inside it. The people came slowly at first, drawn by whispers, women carrying thin children on their hips, men with weary eyes and cracked lips, elders leaning on staffs, their faces heavy with dread. They gathered beneath the great iroko tree, the sacred stone looming nearby with the broken remnants of offerings still scattered around its base. The chief arrived last, his staff dragging in the dust, his shoulders bent under the weight of shame. He sat heavily, saying nothing, but his eyes followed Abeni with unease. When the square was full, Abeni lifted the calabash high. Its glow spread across the faces of the people, casting light even in the morning sun. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, but she did not waver. Her voice rang clear, though she was only a child. The river has spoken, the spirit waits. Truth must eat, or the land will die. A heavy silence followed. Some shifted on their feet, others looked away. The elders sat stiff, their jaws tight. Abeni's gaze swept across the crowd. I will call the names of lies, and the drum will answer. If the lie is hidden, the land will wither. If the truth is spoken, the curse will loosen. She stepped toward the sacred stone, her small figure sharp against the towering tree behind her. The crowd watched, restless, frightened, waiting for someone to speak against her. But then it came, low, steady, patient, boom. The sound rolled beneath their feet, through the dust, through their bones. Some villagers gasped, others clutched one another. Abeni pointed her calabash at the elders. The river knows. The drum waits. Who will confess first? Elder one shifted uneasily on his mat, sweat breaking across his brow. The crowd's eyes turned toward him. He opened his mouth as if to protest, but the drum answered before he could. Boom, boom. The sound was louder now, shaking gourds in nearby huts, rattling the bones of the sacred stone. Mothers hushed their children. Men muttered prayers. The people leaned forward, waiting. And so, before the village, under the rising sun and the shadow of the iroko tree, Abeni's trial of truth began. The square was silent except for the steady breath of the people and the distant hum of insects in the morning air. All eyes fixed on Elder One, who sat stiffly with his staff across his knees. His lips were pressed thin, his jaw working as though grinding stone. Abeni stepped forward, the glowing calabash in her hands trembling slightly but never spilling its light. She lifted her voice. Elder One, your goat was not brought to the feast. You gave the village the thin one, bones sharp beneath its skin, while your fattest goat remained hidden behind the granary. Each morning your grandson crept there with cassava leaves, feeding it while the ancestors were given scraps. Gasps broke through the crowd, faces turned toward the elder, their disbelief sharp. Some murmured, others spat into the dust. Elder One slammed his staff down. Lies, he thundered. This child is nothing but a beggar with an empty bowl. Do you all believe her over me? The river answered him. Boom, boom. The sound shook the ground, rattling the gourds hanging from rafters, stirring the dust in low clouds around their feet. The villagers staggered, clutching their chests. Elder One's face grew pale, his lips trembling though his words had been fierce. Then a small voice broke through the tension. His grandson, a boy no older than 7, stepped out from the crowd. Tears streaked his cheeks as he clutched a bundle of wilted cassava leaves. I did as you told me, grandfather, the boy whispered. Every morning I fed the goat. The crowd erupted, some in anger, some in pity. Elder One's eyes widened, his shoulders sagging as the truth fell heavy upon him. He dropped his staff into the dust. The drum answered again, slower now, softer but clear. Boom! Elder One fell to his knees before the sacred stone. His voice cracked, low and broken. I feared tomorrow. I feared my children would starve if I gave what was fat. I starved my honor instead. Ancestors, forgive me. The people watched in silence. Some nodded, some looked away, but all knew the drum had eaten truth that day. Abeni lowered the calabash. Its glow dimmed for a moment, as though satisfied. But the air was still heavy. The river was not done. Her eyes turned toward Elder 2. If you enjoy the story, don't forget to like and subscribe for part 4.